What would a life-threatening disease change about your life? What would it change about your perspective? Today's episode is an incredible interview with a good friend of mine named Hunter Ballew, who is an incredibly successful author, speaker, entrepreneur, business owner, consultant that has a ton of value to bring to you today. And the main topic we're going to get into is what needs to change about your perspective. What truly matters and how getting malaria changed his life. Pump for this episode, dive in, and I'll see you on the other side. To mine, I'm pumped for this conversation. His name is Hunter Ballew. He runs some really large brands. He's had a very large exit, probably more now than we haven't talked in a little bit. So there's a lot more that you can discuss in what you're doing. He's an author. He's a speaker, runs an event called RoofCon that has thousands of guests every year. He runs a company called roofing.com. He runs a mastermind called Revolt. He's an author. This guy just accomplished so much and has so much value to bring, but more importantly, incredible dude. We met at a masterminds a couple years ago and just stayed connected. I think we really bonded over a friendly competition of knee slapping. If you guys are listening to this, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But our good friend Nick Long hosted this mastermind and had us do this competition where it was called the Knee Slapping World Championship, was what he called it. And you had to basically, it's like a full-on wrestling match, and the goal is to slap the back of the other person's knee. And we were in the finals together. And Hunter said it was rigged, and he didn't like the outcome of me winning. So we have a rematch that we need to set. But Hunter, man, so pumped to have you on this conversation. It's an honor to have you here. I know there's so much you can bring, but you want to give a quick hello, a quick intro to everybody?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love the title. I love the little mosquito emojis for our malaria discussion we're going to have. Yeah, man, I'm thankful to be here. It's been great getting to know you. We met in 2020, towards the end of 2020, got to know each other well through 21. And obviously I've gotten to do several events together, speak together, do podcasts, all the things. And so I'm grateful for your friendship. And no, I'm not pleased with the outcome of that knee slapping competition. And to be fair, Cole won fair and square, but I did mishear the rules. The entire game was you had to slap their knee 3 times to win. Mm-hmm. And so I gave in to try to get the 3 slaps, and apparently we're in sudden death, and it was a 1 slap. So he got the 1 while I got the 3. But we'll run it back. He's a better athlete than me anyway, so it was a long shot for me.
I love it, man. We're so pumped to have you. And if you guys are seeing this in the Facebook group, you see the title. If you're watching the podcast, you saw this and you clicked on it. The conversation we're having today is how malaria taught me what matters. This is Hunter went through some crazy stuff, malaria being kind of the capping point. I'm going to let him explain a little bit of a big lawsuit that he went through, a very large loss money-wise on an event, led to him getting malaria as well, and then how that really taught him what matters and recentered his kind of idea of what's important. And so I'm excited for him to talk about that. And then we're also going to get into some practical business stuff too. This guy's got so much value to bring really in, man, every business avenue conversation because he builds businesses, he invests in business. So I'm excited to dive into that. But let's start there. Hunter, give a little background on this story of malaria, what led to it with the lawsuit and the loss, and then we can dive into really what it taught you too. But let's start with set the foundation a little bit with the malaria story. Tell us about the skeeters.
Yeah, kind of leading into that, I had the business and stuff for a few years, and we can go back to all that with selling the business, buying the business back, all the things. But throughout building Revolt and RoofCon and having these events that we kind of try to focus more on impact than income, I try to lead by example and go out and make a difference in the community. And one of those things being we wanted to go to the other side of the world and see what it's like over there. If for anything, and I'm just being honest here, it's like we wanted to do it for perspective, like just to better understand what it looks like to live without all of the first world things that we have, without all the luxuries, without all the opportunity, which is a big one. We don't really think about that, but opportunity is just a big one. And so, man, we went over there, and I know that you're a man of faith, and so I'll share this story. We're over there, we're doing some praise and worship at night, we're going to different churches, all the things. And it was, I don't remember, I'd have to look back in my notes and stuff, but I think it was like the 3rd night that we were there. And I just couldn't sleep, dude. Like I just couldn't sleep. I'm just rolling around thinking, about life back home. I'm thinking about the people there. One thing I learned while I was there is just how happy people could be with little to nothing.
Yeah.
And it was a cool thing to see when you come from a place like America and a place like South Carolina where we have all the things and it's beautiful and I love it. I'm so grateful and as much opportunity as I could ever ask for. And you go over there and you see people with nothing in comparison and they're just so happy and fulfilled and they praise God like nothing I've ever seen here in the States. And so that third night I'm laying there rolling around in bed and finally I'm just like, dude, I can't do this. I get up and it's like, I don't know, probably 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I just walk outside this hotel we're in. And like when I say hotel, don't think Holiday Inn, Hampton Inn. It actually was a pretty nice hotel, but like we're out there. We're out there in the sticks and like there's palm trees and there's a pool and stuff at this hotel. And I go out there in like the courtyard and I'm just kind of walking around and I am not like Cole. I wish I was. I pray. I watched a video last night that was on YouTube, literally that said the title of it was like how to not suck at singing. And I was like, maybe I can learn how to sing. Like I wish I could sing because if I could sing, like I can perform, I can put on a show. I enjoy it.
He's a showman.
Like man, yeah. When I get on stage, if I do some karaoke, I can have a good time and get the crowd into it. They'll forget about my voice. But no, you don't want to hear my voice. You don't want to hear me play guitar. But I could put on a show. And so one thing I have always loved is writing. Like I love to write. And I don't know what it was, man, but I just started writing a song. And I started writing this song. It's called Need You Now. And, it was a faith-based song.
Yeah.
It's about God and needing him now. And the next morning, like that morning, I stayed up all morning writing the song. And I have no clue what a chorus is or pre-chorus or bridge or any of that stuff. So my good friend Joey that's on the trip with me, he leads praise and worship at his church. And so I get him up first thing in the morning, like he's in the middle of eating breakfast. He's like all tired. I'm like, dude, I need you to help me finish this song. Like I got this song. I'm fired up. It's awesome. Help me. Yeah. And so we spend like the next 2 days, him and Dylan Mullins. You've met Dylan Mullins.
Yeah.
Both of those guys helped me finish this song, writing this song. And so we do the trip. I'm going to tie this in here for you of how it led to Malaria. But I do this trip. And the last night we're there, we round up. We pretty much have the lyrics. We have all the breakdown of how it's going to flow. And we had a group with us from Uganda. We're in Uganda. And there's 4 younger Ugandans with us, 1 boy, 3 girls. And we're like, hey, could you guys kind of come in and sing background, do the chorus and all that for us? And they're like, yeah, we'd love to. And so we stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning singing this song just over and over and over until we got it perfected and we could record it on our phone. And,
cool.
It's not like first class quality because it was just an old phone, but it was great. And man, the entire trip, they tell you to wear pants and socks and all the things. And naturally I'm kind of a rule breaker. So I didn't do those things. The night before we left at the restaurant, it was an outdoors restaurant. I saw mosquitoes flying. That's the only time I saw mosquitoes up to that point. They had candles out on the table, so they weren't landing on you. I wasn't getting bit or anything. We sang that song at 3 a.m. the morning before we were supposed to leave. Like we were leaving the hotel at like 7 a.m. to fly back to the States. We finished the song. We're all hyped up. Like, yes, this is awesome. We did so great. We're going to record this one day. And we did a huddle. There's like 15 of us. There's Americans and then this group of Ugandans. And the Ugandans went through and they prayed for all the Americans. And while we're huddled, you can call this like the freaking devil or whatever you want, man. While we're huddled praying, I'll never forget the mosquitoes just boom, 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 just hitting our feet. And this is the only time that I was touched by a mosquito the entire time I was there. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time. Like they tell you, oh, malaria, whatever, yellow fever, but just didn't think much of it. And so the Ugandans finished praying. And it was bad enough that when they finished praying, we were going to continue going, and the Americans each pray for the Ugandans. And I actually broke it up and said, hey, guys, can we just sit down and we'll just kind of pour into you and show our love to you like verbally and not through prayer? Because I'm literally, dude, I was like stepping on my feet. And I opened my eyes during the prayer, and I saw some other people doing it. And so you've met JP Wilson, a Revolt member. He was there, and he got it too. And sure enough, dude, that night right before we left, contracted malaria. And so about 2 weeks goes by. We're back in the States. I've never been to the hospital, surgery, never been sick, don't do medication stuff, like just not into that. And so I get sick, man. And one of the revolt members, a different revolt member actually that supports an orphanage over in Uganda, reaches out to me because he sees me doing our challenge Fearless 44 where we have to do a Facebook Live.
Yeah.
And he saw how sick I was and he's like, hey man, have you checked to see if you have malaria? And I'm like, no, I really didn't think anything about it. I'm just like, no, it's not that. I'm fine.
Sure.
Well, a day goes by, then he reaches out. The next one, he's like, dude, please go get checked. He said, I had a friend go last year, didn't take it serious. He put it off. He finally went to the doctor. Doctor told him, no, it's probably COVID. Ended up dying. And so I'm like, same thing, stubborn. I don't need to go. I'm fine, whatever. Then he messages Maggie and he's telling Maggie, like, please go get checked. He probably has malaria. And dude, it was unreal. I mean, I can't even explain it. Like the pain, fever, chills, sweating, the entire bed soaked, just it was insane. And I just remember laying in our shower. We got this big tile shower with shower heads and stuff. And I was just laying there in warm water, shaking, trying to stay warm. And Maggie just finally was like, I'm just going to call the hospital. I'm going to call and make sure they got a room and we're going. And I just didn't even have the energy to tell her no. Yeah. And at this point, I'm starting to question in my mind, like, okay, am I being stubborn? Like if I die, my kids are going to not have a dad. Like there's a lot of things, the companies, all the things. And so we went, go check in. They run the test. It's malaria. I stay there for about a week, whatever. They run my blood, say we're good. I come out, which it was horrible, but I come out. There's about a 2-week span, and I never really feel right. JP had gone in the same time. He comes out. He's good. And then I start getting sick again, man. And this time it's worse. And I'm like, what the heck? I go back to the hospital, and they're like, no, there's no way you have malaria again. Like, we checked your blood. It was 0.0. And I'm like, well, listen, I'm telling you, I would not come to the hospital unless it was that bad. Yeah. And it's worse than last time. And so sure enough, they checked me. I've got it again, and it's worse this time because it had, multiplied, compounded. And I guess just, they take like a vial that's like that big of blood. So yeah, of course you could get that much blood with no malaria, I guess. And then the worst part, I'm telling them like, hey, it's way worse this time. The first time I wasn't throwing up or on the pot or anything. This time I was. Yeah. And sure enough, I had E. coli. They actually told me, the way they told me is the infectious disease people walked in. They're like, hey, do you remember that outbreak back in the 20 years ago with Jack in the Box? And I'm like, yeah, where all the people died. And they're like, oh, yeah, E. coli. I don't think they expected me to know because I'm 30 years old, when I was a kid.
You're like, oh, yeah, the one that died. And they're like, well, that's not it. Well.
Yeah, so I'm like, well, thanks for telling me. I've got malaria and E. coli. Oh. And man, that second trip was, I can't even be put into words, man. The amount of pain in different areas and just, and I there's several stories within this story, the second time being there, and I don't want to go too long, but just to give you the short, while I was there, I never felt like, oh, I don't know that I'm going to make it out of this. I have this like weird confidence. Some people might even say arrogance. Like I read a lot about history and like George Washington and John D. Rockefeller and how they talk about God's protection over their life and providence. And I've kind of always believed that about myself. And I could die tomorrow, but while I'm here, like I'm believing that. Like I'm believing God has a call on my life and I've got big things to do. And so I just never really had that fear. That one moment when they told me about E. coli, I kind of had like a sinking, like my gut was like, oh my gosh, malaria and E. coli, this is going to be rough. But I just remember thinking like, I'm going to push through this. And I just kept telling my nurses that because they were like, it was weird, like because they don't see that often. They don't see malaria that often here. And then secondly, they don't ever see malaria and E. coli together. So they were like really empathetic, like, we're so sorry. Is there anything we can do? And it was kind of funny because I was really more of the like positive one saying like, no, it's going to be a great story. I'm going to write a book about it one day. And there was one night where I was a little frustrated and probably not even like rude, but I was very direct with the staff because they just weren't listening to me. One night, it was just so bad. Like, I don't know what it was. I think because of E. coli, and I just kept trying to throw up. My body was, but I had nothing left. And so I think this is just self-diagnosis that my diaphragm was swollen. And so I couldn't really breathe. And so I'm like, I need some oxygen or something. Like I can't breathe. And I'm just not the guy that's going to make that up. Like I literally can't breathe and I can feel my heart rate going up. And so, but yeah, man, it was a wild experience. And while I was in there, the title of it, like how malaria taught me what matters most is absolutely true, man. Like I found the inner peace that I was searching for a year, about a year, a year and a half. Beginning of 2021, I'd sold a company for a lot of money, tens of millions of dollars. About a year into that, we get into the nasty lawsuit because they owed me more money, didn't want to pay me. I ended up getting my company back, getting to keep millions of dollars, millions of shares. It was great, like great win for me. I was pleased with it, but still just so much self-doubt, man. Like, everyone sees these headlines and then this lawsuit comes out and you look like a fraud to some people that don't do their research. For anyone that did the research and like looked into it, it was obvious who was telling the truth in the situation. I found out who my real friends were. You were one of those people through those times. Some people weren't, but still a lot of self-doubt. And I beat myself up. And then I went into a season directly when that finished in 2022. We had RoofCon 2022, which was the fourth year. We had Tim Tebow and John Maxwell, a lot of big speakers. And we built out the auditorium like concert style with a massive stage and lights everywhere and all the things. And a hurricane hit during the middle of the show. And I lost $1 million. Our ticket sales just plummeted. We didn't do nearly as good as we thought, but we still did great compared to the previous year. We went from 2,200 people in 21 to 3,400 people in 22, but just nowhere close to what we thought. And it was hard. And that lingered on too, man, because it wasn't just ticket sales and losing the money. We had vendors that were frustrated because they expected 4,000 to 5,000 people and they were frustrated. And there's nothing we could do about the weather, but we also had to own it. It is what it is. We picked Florida, we picked Orlando. We should have known it was a chance. And so you have those two back-to-back seasons. And man, there were so many nights that I just sat there and thought, if I was a drinking man, if I didn't have kids, I'd probably drink myself to sleep every night. And thankfully, I have an awesome supportive wife and I have kids that are worth being here for. And that was never an option, but there were so many times I thought about it for sure, not to act like I'm above it because I was I hate to say I was depressed and I never said or acknowledged I was depressed, but you could call it like that. I mean, it was definitely in a bad headspace. And so when I got to that bed in the hospital, laying there thinking, this could have been it. I don't know that I said this, but the first round when I went to the hospital, I went on a Wednesday, and the doctor said that had we waited till Friday, I would have died.
Wow.
So yeah, it was crazy to think that, and then having to go through it a second time with E. coli. And yeah, man, just sitting there knowing that none of that stuff matters. Like all those valleys, all those tough seasons of life, they are just that. They're seasons. They don't define me. They don't get to hold me down forever. They're just seasons. And sometimes you're going to have a bad season, and that's okay. You just got to come back stronger for the next one. And so I'm so grateful for that experience because it's what I needed. I spent the first part of 2023 trying to figure that out. This is crazy. And some people are going to think I'm a weirdo, and I think I'm a weirdo because I never thought I'd do this, but I hired a hypnotist. Like I legitimately hired a hypnotist. Like I'll try anything just because I want to find that inner peace. And, I don't even know that the hypnosis stuff worked so much. Maybe it did, but I think just the fact that it was top of mind and I was intentional about trying to find that inner peace, it started working. And the malaria was really the head of it, where I started to bury some of that self-doubt. The confidence started to come back and really started to believe in myself again and know, like, man, God is giving me another chance. There's been so many stupid things and so many times I've almost died in my life doing stupid stuff. He's given me another chance. He's got something for me. And, like I wrote the book, Make It Count. And all that started with one of my good friends and my partner at the fire department passing away because someone hit him head on running from the cops. And I made a commitment September 17th, 2015, I'm going to make every day count. Yeah. And that was just it. I was reminded of that in that hospital. And then, looking at, I'm not a big news guy. I'll wrap up the malaria thing with this. I'm not a big news guy. Yeah. But when I was in the hospital is when Israel got attacked.
Yeah.
And so I flipped on the TV to watch that, just see what was going on. And while I was watching it, St. Jude's commercial came on. And I was right beside the children's hospital where I was at. And dude, you talk about humbling, man. I mean, hit me. I was in my feels already because I'm just emotional being in there, not being able to see my kids and not just wondering what's happening. I just got so emotional looking at those kids and thinking, man, look at this. Look at the situation I'm in. It's so temporary compared to what some of these people are having to deal with. Then I got out after that first round of malaria, and they sent me to for my blood draw. For some reason, they sent me to there's like a cancer treatment facility.
Yeah.
And when I walked in there, you're seeing all these people that are dealing with that. And while I was in there, now I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. It's not Atlanta, it's not New York City, but it's like a good B city. There's 1 million people here in the upstate.
Yeah.
And so I walk in there and I see 2 people that I know with cancer. One, I didn't know they had cancer. One, I knew they had cancer. And it was just another like gut punch. Here I am like, oh, poor me. I'm out of work and I got to deal with this. RoofCon's coming up and I need to be doing this stuff. And it just is a reminder, like it's just a season. How can I use it? How can I control what I can control? One of my favorite quotes is Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning. Like, we get to choose our attitude. That's the last of God's given gifts, is we get to choose our attitude. Yeah. No one can control that except for us, no matter what happens to you. So yeah, man, I'm super grateful for it now that it's come and gone and I learned from it.
Dude, it's powerful. What was the song called that you wrote?
Need You Now.
Man,
I'll send you it afterwards.
I can't help but it's almost like the conversation of like, I pray for patience, God puts me in traffic. I can't help but think that like, hey, I'm praying like to have a deeper need for God. I'm also praying for this peace, and God says, all right, well, I'll show you what it takes to find the peace you're looking for. I'll show you what it takes to really need me. And I know for me, there's so many of those rock bottom moments in life of pain, of struggle, of frustration that it's like ends up on the back end being exactly what I need. And man, I think it just comes from surrender. Like it took you, like God stripping everything away, saying, hey, I'll show you what it looks like to really be on your knees. Yeah, I'll get you there. I'll help you find that place. And to me, like I fully believe peace is found in surrender, though. Like you can't find that unless you fully drop to your knees and say, I can't control anything. Like I think it's tough for us as driven people that, can build things and accomplish things, and you put a task in front of us and we'll chase it and achieve it. And it takes God kind of showing us like, hey, here's something that you can't control. What are you gonna do with that? Like, okay. But there's a scripture that says, peace that passes under all understanding will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. And I actually did a podcast episode on this, but for peace to guard your heart and minds, like that can't happen. Like you can't guard something that's not your own. Like if you don't have ownership of something, you can't guard it. And so if Christ is going to guard your heart with peace, like he has to have ownership. And I think about like if I come and try to like protect your backyard, and I just showed up in your backyard and I'm like, all right, bro, I'm going to watch your yard tonight. First off, he'd be like, you're a psychopath. What are you doing? Second off, like, bro, it's not yours. Like you can't watch this. Like I could leave the gate open and let someone in and ruin it for you. And I think it's the same thing for us. Like God, like a lot of times we ask for peace, we're praying for it, but we don't have that like full place of surrender. And I'm not saying we don't have a relationship with God, but there's an area that we're trying to do on our own. And God's like, I can't give you peace because you're controlling it. If you give it to me to control, like I'll protect it with peace. But right now you're leaving the door wide open yourself. And so I think,
it's so good, man.
It's the same, lessons God's been showing me right now is like, hey, I'm going to give you a reason to surrender. But on the back end, it's exactly what you need. And you find like, dude, true peace actually isn't losing the storm. It's like just having a grounding inside of it. Like, I don't even know that you may be in a different place on the back end. We can talk about kind of how the curve has kind of come through and how you've, maybe grown. But I would imagine that it didn't really necessarily change the circumstances as much immediately as much as it did just change you internally. Is that true? Or, what's happened since then? What lessons have you learned, or what's taken forward from this?
Yeah, man. Like I said, my confidence has been renewed. I kind of buried some of that self-doubt, which was good because there was a lot of, I hate to keep saying self-doubt, but
yeah,
that's the best word when I look at Cornerstone and selling that company. And, for anyone that sold a company, or if you haven't and it's something you're thinking about, something that no one's going to tell you because it's just not sexy to talk about, is that's reality. If you actually care about your people, it hurts. Like when you sell your company, in a way, you're kind of selling your people,
Mm.
and that hurt, man. Like I remember when we sold the company in 21. About 8 months later, we were at RoofCon 2021, and like I'm still super close to the team. I love them, like they know that, but I wasn't there. Like I wasn't involved with Cornerstone as much. I was working on bigger things, and some of the team still would come down to RoofCon and help set up and everything. And one of the guys that'd been with me the longest walked up, and he just hugged me. He just grabbed me and hugged me. He's like, "Hunter, I miss you, man. Like, where you been?" And dude, I just lost it because it was already weighing on me. And I was trying to hide from him. Like I was crying, man. Like it hit me hard. I just felt so bad. Like I had, you know, let them down and sold out basically. And so coming full circle to being a part of Cornerstone again, when I was back in, it was like I didn't feel worthy.
Yeah.
I started it, and most of the people had started, under my leadership, and we had grown and all the things. It's like I just didn't feel worthy. And so, really, like in the last 6 months since the malaria stuff is the most I've been involved in years, even before I sold the company, because I was integrating a new CEO then.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, man, it's actually been a lot of fun. Like I've been more involved with each of the businesses than I have been in years. Because in the last couple of years, I've just been spending so much time helping other people with their businesses and coaching and all the things. And I've just been rejuvenated by getting involved with mine again. And so I've been putting more focus on that. It's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Cool. We're seeing growth and great bounce back year after that bad 22. Like we did great last year, biggest year ever. And, it was a lot of fun. And we're excited for what's happening this year too.
Yeah. But what I think is cool about this is like this piece that you found, which I have a question I want to ask, really where your focus went in a second, but like you had crazy moments of lows. You've also had crazy moments of highs, but I think what you recognized was there's like the piece that you found had nothing to do with the external situation. Like you're in the hospital bed, suffering, yet that's where you found the peace. Would you say that's something that you're now still carrying as things are getting good too, and you're focusing inwards? Or I guess better question is, what did matter most, or what was the thing you really honed in on?
Yeah. No, I don't think that I'm still carrying it. I know that I am.
Yeah.
And I could say that with confidence, because if I wasn't, I wouldn't be as involved with the companies as I am. Like that's why I'm saying that. It's like, not to say I'd stiff-armed Cornerstone for those 2 years, but it's because I didn't feel worthy enough, good enough to be involved with them. I felt like I was kind of shunned. And then it was that slowly getting back involved and slowly starting to run some meetings with the team and integrate some of the impact exercises we do, like at Revolt and things like that. Go on the retreats with them and do leadership meetings with different people on the leadership team. And so, to carry that now is something that I'm not just getting a benefit for myself. I'm able to talk to my team about it, talk to the people in Revolt about it, and hopefully impact other people other than myself, for people that are going through that themselves. Because I think for the most part, we all deal with that at some point, especially if we're a business owner. You're gonna go through that at some point. And I really shouldn't even say that. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a secretary or a salesperson, or we all deal with that. We all deal with self-doubt and struggle with inner peace. And that's the crazy thing. I was just on a podcast with Tony Watley like an hour ago, and we were talking about how in Africa, there's so many people that crave the opportunity and the money, but then the people over here in America that have the opportunity and the money, we know plenty of them, they crave the fulfillment and the peace. And it's just this weird balance and this thing that, if we could figure out the peace and the fulfillment here in America, I think we'd be a lot happier.
Yeah. I keep hearing you say this thing about worthiness, and I hone in that because that's been a struggle of mine too, of not feeling worthy or not feeling enough. And I think it's probably where we get a lot of our drive to accomplish and achieve stuff too, is to try to scratch that and like prove it to ourselves. But I think what's cool, and it's the same thing I'm learning and finding, is whenever you've got to that place of surrender is when you kind of were able to shake off a little bit of that unworthiness. It's because you realize like, maybe I'm not worthy, but if I can trust God a little more, he can bridge that gap a little bit. And one of my favorite scriptures is, he who knew no sin became sin so that we could be called righteous. And there's an exchange there. It's like, people always say like Jesus died for me, but really Jesus died as you. And and there's an exchange that took place so that when God sees you, he sees Jesus, not you. And so, I think what's cool about us finding surrender is it's us like stepping back into like, all right, you'll have to carry the worthiness for me then, because I ain't got it. And like once we set back into that, we realize, oh, like I was never any more worthy or any less worthy before anyways. It all depended on you. And so I'm just finding like once you get to that place of peace, it's kind of cool how you've like somehow, it doesn't make sense, but somehow I feel more worthy even though I'm on my knees in surrender. It's like the strongest place to be in, which is pretty cool. Man, I would love to know, kind of as like a, turning this into a bit of a coaching conversation, what would you tell someone who, man, on two ends of the spectrum? One is like, hey, I'm having huge highs, crushing it, I'm finding success, but maybe I'm not having the fulfillment I want. Or on the back end of what you said, hey, I'm really like, I'm in the dumps right now. Like things are struggling. I don't know how to get out of this. Like, what would your encouragement for be both of those now that you've kind of seen both ends of the extreme?
Yeah, man. I think for the first example, if you're crushing it in business and you just don't have that fulfillment, one of the things we talk about all the time with Revolt guys, Revolt girls, the business owners that come and work with us, that come to our events, is finding that common mission, something that you can strive for to make a difference in. Good example of that is we have the Revolt Foundation. And so for us, we pour back into underprivileged kids. We give courses. We do events. Our event's called Life 101, where we bring in, I say coaches, but don't think of like coaches of like actual coaches that do it for a living. It's just like real life people. So like a banker would come in and they would teach on how to establish credit, how to manage a bank account. We bring in the local guy that works at the gym and talk about health. And so we structure the event Life 101 around those 6 bricks of health, wealth, faith, growth, relationships, and legacy. Mm-hmm. And so just last night, Brandon Allen, one of the Revolt members, they ran a Life 101 up in Wisconsin. And so, we talked for 3 hours on the phone until like 1:30 in the morning. And he was just, not the whole conversation was that, but a lot of it was talking about Life 101 and just how he probably wouldn't have taken it on if it was just him, because he's just tapped and his capacity's tapped, but his wife was involved and was excited about it. And then she got his team to rally around it. So, about 6 or 7 of his team members decided to come together and go to the event and pour into these kids that showed up. And he was just talking about how awesome it was to see his team rally around those kids, and how when they finished the event, it was a pretty small group, but he said when they finished the event, they were like, we're not just doing this once a year, are we? And he was like, well, I mean, usually that's kind of what they do. They're trying to do one a year in each state. And they were like, well, we got to do one a quarter. And so it's cool to see the buy-in from your team. And so, establishing whatever that common mission is. Like for some of the Revolt members, they don't have anything specifically. So they use the Revolt Foundation and do some of our training. Yours might be that you care about veterans, or you care about homeless people, or you care about abused women, or just find something that matters to you that you're passionate about. And if you can, go out and find a nonprofit that you already align with. My last recommendation is starting your own, because it's a pain and it's like running another business. Just find one that you can align with and support them and get involved with that. That way the business becomes more than just running it to make extra money, because at some point, dude, the well runs dry. Like if you got enough money, you got enough money. For me, at this point, for a lot of us, like we could sell everything and be cool and just retire, whatever. That's not fun. Like a lot of us, we got in this to prove a point. We said that a minute ago. That was me selfishly. I wanted to prove a point to a lot of people that didn't believe. I wanted to make money. I wanted that freedom. But now we get a chance to give back to others. And then on the flip side of that is if you're someone that's struggling and you're just like, man, I'm down in the dumps. I'm not doing good financially either. Like that's a tough spot to be in. And I think if you're that person, it's all about community. If you're just staying at home and you're like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I have so much self-doubt, yada, 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 you're going to let yourself talk and talk and talk and talk. And it's hard to believe unless you get around someone like Cole, you get around someone in a community, in a mastermind, at an event, you hire a coach and you let someone believe in you and you borrow their confidence. I think that's something really important. I've been using that phrase a lot lately. My coach told me is let them borrow your confidence, Hunter. Like that's why people work with me.
Great.
And I guess I knew that for a long time because every year for the last 5 years, I've made a post on Facebook or posted on my story, and I'll say, what do you, my followers, what do you think my God-given gift is? Unbiased. I'm not going to say, what do you think it's A, B, or C? Tell me what you think my God-given gift is.
Right.
Usually what I hear are these two things. One is you're great at building communities and bringing people together. Two is you believe in people more than they believe in themselves, which is one that I pride myself on so much. And it's so frustrating for someone that does that. Like when I believe in my friend more than he believes in himself and he won't take that jump to start his own business, it is so hard, man, because I just want him to do it. And I know he can do it and he just doesn't believe in himself. And so, yeah, man, I think that going back to the statement of bar and the confidence, when someone comes to our retreat and they're like, hey, man, I'm $1 million contractor. I've been doing this thing for 8 years. And I just, 2 million sounds like so much. And I'm like, dude, you could do 5 million within 24 months. Like, what? You really think so? And I say, yeah, let's look at this checklist. Do you think you can do A, B, C, D? If we line this out and created a timeline and helped you and held you accountable, could you do that? And they start to believe in like, man, yeah, I guess I could. Like if this guy did it and if Hunter did it and this other guy did, I put my pants on the same way as you, brother. Yeah. Like, and I'm not in a huge town. If you're in Atlanta or Chicago or some massive city, I'm in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, like you can do it too. And so let people borrow that confidence. But you got to put yourself in the right community. If you're that person that's just, you don't have the belief, you don't feel like you're worthy, you don't have the cash, put yourself in the right container. That matters more than anything. You got to have the right people around you. Because if you're around the small town, small talking people, listen, I was in the Marine Corps and I was at the fire department. I love the fire department. But I can tell you right now, the reason I wrote Make It Count is because of Jordan. Like Jordan, the guy that passed away, got killed on the motorcycle, was the one dude at the fire department that really, really believed in me. For the most part, everyone else was like, Hunter, you just need to focus on the fire service and go get another course and go get another certification. Quit selling cars and boats and trailers and starting businesses and doing all those things. Jordan cared, man. He actually believed in me. And so having that person that believed in me pushed me to taking that step of leaving the fire department. He died in September, and it was within I'd been there 5 years full time. If I'd have just kept listening to those other people talk, maybe I never leave the fire department, which means I never reach the thousands of people that we have through our events and podcasts and yada, yada, yada. And so having someone to believe in you is everything.
Dude, powerful. What I love about that is both ends of the spectrum, fixing them didn't happen alone. Like you being at the top of the mountain, wanting to find fulfillment, you can't find that on your own. You've got to find something bigger than you. If you're on the bottom of the barrel, like to heal, you need to get around other people. And I think it's so important that we got to remember, like, we can't do this life alone. If you're struggling, get around other people. If you're crushing it but not finding what you're looking for and you need more purpose, get around other people. And I think that's something that most people just don't put enough weight in. Like they feel like they got to suffer alone. They got to celebrate alone. Like they don't want to, either end of the spectrum. If they're crushing it, like I don't want to tell people because then they feel like I'm bragging. Or if I'm struggling, it's like I don't want to tell people. I don't want to be a burden. It's like, no.
Dude, that's a great example right there, man. It's like I struggle with that. I don't naturally like sharing my wins because I don't want people to think I'm arrogant. It's less about, you have like your old school people, like our parents and specifically our grandparents are like, you don't talk about money, which I think is a little bit wild. I think it's good and healthy for, I actually told Brandon Allen this last night. I said, did you tell him you're a millionaire? Did you tell him your business does 25 million a year? Did you tell him that you help all these people? And he's like, no, I didn't want to sound like I was bragging. And I'm like, I get it, man. But when you get a dozen kids together that are 13 to 18 years old, they probably don't care what you have to say. But when you throw out that keyword, I'm a business owner, I'm a millionaire, my business does $25 million. I get to go every year to Bimini or the Bahamas or whatever for a month out of the year. Now you're perking their interest and they're like, oh, wow, that sounds amazing. I'd love to be a millionaire. I'd love to not have this pain that I've grown up with and my parents being drug addicts. And you just become relatable to them, like talking about the bad, but also talking about the good. I think that's so important. And this, anytime you're speaking, like you're just trying to connect with people and be relatable. So I still struggle with that, man. It's way easier for me to talk about my upbringing and my parents being addicts and that driving me than it is for me to be like, hey man, we made millions of dollars last year in profit and we did X, Y, Z. But I do it at times because I realize that people need to be inspired. Like they need to hear that.
I think it's tough because like you said, we feel like we're we're bragging, but there's so many times where, like you said, people are inspired by our wins. And obviously we don't want to go around just bragging to everybody all the time, but there's a time and a place that you need to share what God's done for you. Like there's, scripture literally says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, meaning us sharing the good things God has done in our life actually gives people, that's the borrowed belief. Like people can't borrow your belief if they don't hear about your belief. Right. And I think if you're listening to this and you're someone that, like us, that have accomplished a lot of things, don't be afraid to share that. As long as your heart's in the right place, so like, it's not about me, I'm trying to help people. Like, don't be afraid to share where you've won, because that inspires and encourages other people. Man, to wrap up this conversation, what would be some final kind of parting encouragement of any topic, but something that you would leave the listeners if you could encourage them with one thing? What would it be?
Yeah, the community is everything. We just talked about it. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. It's what I do for a living, and the reason I do that is because I came from the Marine Corps. I came from the fire department, and I missed that camaraderie. When I did that Marine Corps, I did the fire department, I went into business, and I got into business, and it was just sitting behind the computer all day long by myself, trying to earn a dollar. And it was boring, man. It was like, God, what the heck? Like, I don't have that brotherhood anymore. I don't have that community. And so we started Revolt, which started as Bold was the name of it, Bold Brotherhood, because it was just for men when we started. And then we transitioned to Revolt, and, with an intention of kind of making it more into like a movement, the Revolt Against Average. Like our 6 bricks are health, wealth, faith, growth, relationships, legacy. Revolt against average in every one of those, and you're going to have an amazing life and an amazing legacy that you're proud of.
Wow.
That's what we want. We want people to revolt against average. And so, yeah, for me, man, I think it's just surrounding yourself with the right people. I don't care if you're 14 years old. I don't care if you're 80 years old. If you're a business owner starting out, if you're a billionaire, if you're a sales rep, if you're an office manager, you got to be around good people. Yeah. It's so sad to me to see people on both ends, going back to both ends of the spectrum. Like, I've met so many people that are 50 years old, 60 years old, people that I know very well that have done okay in business. But the problem is they never leveled up their container, right? Like a family member here in Greenville, South Carolina is only friends with people here in South Carolina, and he's the top dog because his business is doing $2 million a year and he makes $400,000 or $500,000 a year. That's great. I'm not knocking that by any means. That's great. But I know his potential, and I know he could have done so much more than that. But when he hit that level, he thought, I'm the kingpin around here, because his friends, and I'm not going to say names, but someone close to me, and all of his friends are down here. He doesn't surround himself with people that make him dream bigger. And that's a problem. A quote I came up with years ago is, never let your latest be your greatest. Always keep pushing. Like, there's always another mountain ahead. And that doesn't mean don't be grateful. Another saying I say all the time is always grateful, never satisfied. Like, I'm always grateful for what I have, but I'm never satisfied. I know there's another level where I can reach more people and impact more people. It doesn't mean don't be grateful. It just means keep pushing.
Yeah. So powerful. And I love the thing about putting yourself around the right communities, because we are literally just like goldfish. We grow to the size of our tank. And if you guys haven't seen and heard that, if goldfish are placed in bigger tanks, they literally grow to size of the tank. We all think of goldfish as these tiny, like 2 or 3 inch, but goldfish can literally be like over a foot long. Like, I don't remember the exact size, but they can be like 2 feet long, and that's massive compared to the tiny little things we're used to seeing. Why? Because they're not constrained by their environment. So powerful, man. Thank you so much for being with us. What do people need to do to connect with you? How can they find more about what you're doing? How can they learn from you, connect with you, get your stuff? What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm pretty simple. I'm not into really all the socials and stuff. If you're on Facebook, you can find me on Facebook, just Hunter Ballew. You can DM me. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I use Messenger for everything. My team hates me because I used to adapt to Slack.
Get an iPhone, bro.
Android for life. We're not all brainwashed, brother. But yeah, if you just want to connect, ask a question, that's a good spot. If it's business, we do have this free assessment we built out with like 25 questions. It's at therevolt.com/booster, therevolt.com/booster. And if you fill that test out, it'll analyze your business based off of the questions that I've built. I have a whole scoring system and everything, and then it'll send you free resources for your business based on that. So check that out.
It's awesome. Super valuable. We'll put that in the show notes so everybody can access that. I'll also put a link to your Facebook so they can go check you out. But if you guys are business owners listening to this, I would highly connect you. Not only get Hunter's book, check out the retreats that he does for business owners. I've been a part of multiple of them. So much value. He can help your business. He can help you grow in every area of your life. So check his stuff out. Hunter, thank you so much for being with us. Super honored. Really appreciate it. I'm sure the listeners will get a ton of value too.
There you have it. What an incredible conversation. I hope this episode challenges you and encourages you to rethink what really matters most. Why are you here on this earth? Is it for money? Is it for success? Or is there something deeper? I hope you can rethink those things. Hey, if you want to grow in your life, if you want to become a better version of yourself, the best place to start is with your health. And if we can help with that, I would love to be able to. We have a free resource included in the show notes below called our Optimized Entrepreneur Protocol. They can make sure that you know exactly what to eat, how to train, and how to supplement your body so that you can be around longer for your family. You can perform better for your business, and you can become the best version of you. If you'd like access to that free resource, click the link below in the show notes, in the description, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.